5 strange and crazy villages around the world you have to see to believe. Hello and welcome back to the Discovery Fact Channel. My dear friends, have you ever imagined waking up one beautiful morning only to discover that no one in your entire village remembers who you are? You'd probably say that sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, right? Well, at first glance, most people would think so. But that's only if you didn't know that somewhere out there on the very planet we live on, there truly exists a village where the residents gradually and mysteriously lose their memories. And that's not all. To make things even more mysterious and bizarre, there are villages where the moment you set foot inside, you see nothing but beautiful young women who look like they've stepped straight off a movie screen, while the men have disappeared for decades without anyone knowing why. There are even villages where the living and the dead exist side by side like neighbors who share everyday life together. Just hearing about it is enough to give you chills, isn't it? Our world is vast and incredibly diverse. Even if you travel across every continent with a backpack or spend your entire life exploring, you still might never fully understand all the strange things nature has laid out before us. From unusual burial customs involving the remains of the deceased, to communities that have given birth only to girls for many generations, or even villages where people use whistling instead of spoken words to call one another by name. All of these are real stories from mysterious remote villages that exist somewhere in this world. So which villages are these? What makes them so strange and extraordinary? Are the stories behind them rooted in scientific mysteries, spiritual beliefs, or simply one-of-a-kind cultural traditions? If you're just as curious as I am, then what are you waiting for? Join Discovery Fact as we begin our journey to explore the 5 strangest and most bizarre villages on the planet right now. Village that heard only the cries of baby girls for 9 straight years. Not a single baby boy. In many parts of the world, people struggle with the gender imbalance favoring men. Yet there is a small village in Europe facing the exact opposite situation. For 9 straight years, not a single baby boy was born there. It sounds like a joke, doesn't it? But no, this is a true story from a village with a rather hard-to-pronounce name, Miasto Odrzańskie, located in southern Poland near the Czech border. The village has a population of only about 300 people. It's tiny. You can walk around it a few times and you've basically covered the whole place. But what drew national attention in Poland wasn't its scenery or its food. It was the overwhelming number of women in its population. From children and teenagers to adults and the elderly, females make up a clear majority. Even more remarkably, for 9 consecutive years, not a single family welcomed a baby boy. 1 or 2 years might be dismissed as coincidence, but nearly an entire decade? Doesn't that make you pause for a second? Even the village's volunteer fire department, traditionally a role associated with men, is now made up mostly of women. Just imagine young women in firefighter uniforms, strong and confident. It's definitely something that would make anyone stop and admire. But behind that fascinating detail lies a serious question, not just for the villagers, but for scientists around the world. What is actually happening in this village? The story spread widely and eventually caught the attention of the scientific community, including Professor Rafał Płoski from the Medical University of Warsaw. He argued that this phenomenon cannot simply be dismissed as luck or chance. According to him, researchers would need to dig deeper into the village's reproductive history, review statistical records, interview families, and examine genetic as well as environmental factors. At this point, some of you might be thinking, isn't having a boy or a girl just a matter of probability? And yes, biologically speaking, the sex of a baby at birth is generally close to a coin flip, about 50-50. But if you flip a coin dozens of times and it keeps landing on the same side, you'd start to question it too, wouldn't you? Professor Płoski even raised the possibility that couples in the village might share distant family ties, or that certain environmental factors could be influencing the sex ratio at birth. This isn't about favoring boys over girls. Gender equality is not up for debate here. But when an entire community goes 9 years without a single baby boy being born, it could point to something deeper. Could it be the water supply, their diet, or some unique biological factor quietly at work? No one knows the exact reason. Even scientists investigating the case can only form hypotheses. So what chance do the rest of us have, right? If any of you can figure out the real reason, I'd have to call you a genius. The Poison Immune Village, where people drink arsenic like water and stay perfectly healthy. Have you ever heard stories about ancient times when arsenic was used to poison kings and royalty? Just a tiny amount was enough to kill someone. And yet, there is a place in the world where people have been drinking water containing arsenic for thousands of years, and they remain healthy, go about their daily lives as usual, and even pass this extraordinary ability on to their children. It sounds like something straight out of a Marvel superhero movie, doesn't it? But this story is completely real. At an elevation of more than 12,100 feet above sea level, in the dry mountainous region of the majestic Andes in Argentina, there is a village with a long name, San Antonio de los Cobres. The wind blows year-round, the land is gray and rocky, and the landscape looks harsh at first glance. But what truly left scientists stunned wasn't the altitude or the extreme weather, it was the water supply. Why? Because the community's drinking water contains arsenic levels 20 times higher than what is considered safe. Yes, you heard that correctly, 20 times higher, a toxin well into the danger zone. Around the world, more than 137 million people suffer negative health effects from arsenic contamination in water and food. Even low levels can damage the lungs, heart, kidneys, and liver, and increase the risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. At higher levels, it can cause immune system failure, seizures, coma, and even death. And yet in San Antonio de los Cobres, people continue to live, work, and raise their children using that very same water. Of course, it's not because they're reckless. It's because their bodies are different. Their ancestors were the Atacameños people, who have lived in the arid Puna region for nearly 11,000 years. For millennia, they had no choice but to rely on natural water sources flowing through volcanic rock layers, rock that naturally contains arsenic. Over an immense span of time, their bodies gradually adapted, not in the sense of getting used to it, but through changes at the genetic level. A research team led by Dr. Karen Broberg from Lund University discovered that between about 7,000 and 10,000 years ago, residents of the region developed specific genetic mutations. These mutations allow their bodies to metabolize arsenic more efficiently, converting the highly toxic substance into a less harmful form before eliminating it. To put it simply, if our bodies treat arsenic as a deadly enemy, their bodies function like highly trained masters who have developed an internal antidote technique. For them, arsenic is no longer a death sentence. It's a challenge their bodies know how to neutralize from within. Doesn't that suddenly make the concept of adapt or survive feel more real than ever? Instead of abandoning their harsh homeland, their ancestors stayed, endured, and over thousands of years, natural selection favored the individuals whose bodies were best suited to survive there. But don't misunderstand, this doesn't mean that anyone who moves there for a few years will suddenly become toxin resistant. This is the result of an evolutionary process spanning thousands of years, embedded in the DNA of many generations. It stands as powerful proof of human resilience in the face of extreme environments, not an invitation to try living there for fun just to see what happens. The village of people with memory loss, yet the happiest in the Netherlands. Did you know that in the peaceful town of Weesp in the Netherlands, there is a very special village called Hogeweyk? From the outside, it looks just like any other European village. Charming houses, a small supermarket, a cafe, and even a park with benches where elderly folks can sit and chat. But the difference is, every single resident here suffers from memory loss ranging from mild to severe. Calling it a village is accurate, but more precisely, Hogeweyk is a nursing home. However, it's nothing like the cold, clinical facilities you might imagine with the smell of disinfectant and long, sterile hallways. Back in 1993, it actually did begin as a traditional hospital-style nursing home. But the staff soon realized that caring for people isn't just about giving medication and monitoring symptoms. It's about giving them a life. And so, Hogeweyk transformed itself. Instead of confining residents within 4 walls, they built an entire small-scale village complete with 23 houses. Each house is home to 6 or 7 residents living together like a family. Every house has a caregiver. Technically, this person is a fully trained nurse, but to the residents, they feel more like a family member. They cook meals, take residents for walks, go shopping with them, and even participate in community events together. At that point, it feels far beyond a typical nurse-patient relationship. The facility's manager, Eloy Van Hall, once shared that Hogeweek was designed to mirror the outside world, so people with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia can feel as though they are still living a normal life. They are not treated as patients, but as residents. Perhaps the most meaningful philosophy here is this: the focus is on what the elderly can still do, not on what they can no longer do. It sounds simple, but think about it. How many times in life are we reminded of our shortcomings instead of being encouraged for what we're still capable of? At Hogeweek, if a resident is still able to use real money, they are allowed to pay for their purchases just like anyone else. Most of the time, they buy small items like toothpaste or candy, but the act of choosing something for themselves and paying with their own hands is incredibly meaningful. That sense of independence is no small thing. Residents are also encouraged to stay active, not by lifting weights or building six-pack abs, but through simple activities like walking, gardening, or just sitting outside on a bench and breathing in fresh air. It may sound ordinary, but research shows that even simply sitting outdoors can significantly improve mood and overall well-being in people with Alzheimer's. Sometimes the best medicine isn't found in a pill, it's found in sunlight and birdsong. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Hogeweek is this: no one forces residents to remember what they've forgotten. Instead of constantly asking, "Don't you remember?" the staff step into the resident's reality. If someone believes they are still going to work, the caregivers engage in conversation as if the workday is continuing. They don't contradict, they don't correct, they gently accompany them in their world. Hogeweek is more than just a village for people with memory loss. It's a reminder to all of us that humanity doesn't always lie in advanced technology. It lies in how we treat one another. After hearing about this village, is anyone quietly hoping that when they grow old, they might have a life like this too? Leave a comment and let's see how many of you feel the same way. The extraordinary village, where the living and the dead coexist. Just hearing the word funeral is enough to make the atmosphere feel heavy, right? But would you believe that in a place nestled among the towering mountains of Sulawesi Island in Indonesia, there is a community that sees death as the most important and highly anticipated event of a person's life? This is the land of the Toraja people, where the living and the dead share the same home. It sounds chilling at first, doesn't it? But wait, don't start picturing a midnight horror movie just yet. For the Toraja, death is not the end. They believe it is simply a transition to a better world. So when someone passes away, the family does not rush to bury them as is common in most parts of the world. Instead, the body is kept inside the home, sometimes for several months, sometimes even for years, until the family can afford to hold a proper funeral ceremony. At this point, some of you might be wide-eyed and asking, how is that even possible? Here's how. The bodies of the deceased are preserved with a substance called formalin, which prevents decomposition. During that time, the departed person is still considered alive. They are invited to meals, included in conversations, and even photographed with the family as if they had never truly left. The deeper reason lies in the nature of Toraja funerals. These are not simple ceremonies, they are major events that can last up to 12 days, involving the sacrifice of dozens of buffalo and pigs. The cost can reach hundreds of thousands of US dollars. Just hearing that number is enough to make your wallet hurt, right? That is why families need time to prepare, to save money, and to ensure their loved one has a proper ticket to the afterlife. For them, it is an act of devotion and a sacred bond between descendants and their ancestors. And that's not all. Even after burial, every year in August, the Toraja hold a special ritual called Manene, which roughly translates to caring for the ancestors. During this ceremony, the bodies are taken out of their graves, gently cleaned, dressed in fresh clothes, and symbolically brought back to visit their former homes. The entire family gathers, eating and talking together as if at a joyful reunion. According to the Toraja, if ancestors are cared for properly, they will bless the family with good fortune and protection. Now, some of you might be thinking, so the whole village is full of walking mummies? Well, yes and no. To them, these are not corpses. They are grandparents, parents, beloved family members who have never truly left. What's fascinating is that today, this tradition has blended with modern life. Many families take photos, even selfies, with their deceased relatives. After the ritual, the bodies are returned to their coffins, along with personal items such as watches, sunglasses, or jewelry, as symbols of enduring love. Honestly, just hearing about it can send chills down your spine. I don't know about you, but if I were standing there in person, my heart would probably be pounding like a drum. And yet, tourists from all over the world continue to visit, curious, amazed, and sometimes even brave enough to take photos with the preserved bodies. It truly shows how vast and astonishing our world is. Some customs may seem strange when viewed from the outside, but when we look deeper, we often discover they are rooted in love and beliefs preserved across generations. And perhaps this village, where the living coexist with the dead, is just one of countless mysteries that make our planet such a fascinating place to explore. The Western Liang Women's Kingdom Village, where women are free to have multiple romantic partners. If one day you heard someone say, "There's a village in China where women can love whoever they want, break up whenever they want, no elaborate weddings, no living together, no dividing property," you'd probably think it was some kind of remixed historical drama plot, right? But no, this story is real, and it has existed for nearly 2,000 years in the highlands of southwestern China. There is a small community called Liziazui, home to the Mosuo people. They are often referred to as the last matriarchal society in China, and they even carry a colorful nickname, the Western Liang Women's Kingdom. Just hearing that name feels almost legendary. Today, around 40,000 Mosuo people live scattered across Yunnan and Sichuan provinces near the Tibetan border, especially around Lugu Lake. And honestly, the lake is so beautiful that just seeing photos of it makes you want to pack your bags immediately. Crystal clear water, mountains all around, and mist drifting gently in the morning. It's no wonder photographers and film crews are constantly drawn there. But what fascinates visitors even more than the scenery is the Mosuo women's approach to love. Here, property is passed down through the mother's line. Children take their mother's last name. Women are the heads of the household. At this point, some men might be feeling just a little nervous. But the most unique feature lies in a tradition known as walking marriage. The name sounds like it involves exercise, but in reality it refers to a traditional relationship system. During the day, men and women live with their own extended families. At night, if a woman gives her consent, the man quietly visits her private room, often called the flower room, to talk and spend the night together. The next morning, he returns to his own home as if nothing happened. There are no lavish weddings, no moving in together, no mother-in-law and daughter-in-law tensions, and most importantly, no shared property to divide. At this point, many people ask, so do women here have many partners at the same time? That's actually the most common misunderstanding. It's true that Mosuo women have the freedom to choose their partners and can end a relationship without social stigma if it no longer works. However, most Mosuo women do not have multiple partners simultaneously. Anthropologists often describe this system as serial monogamy, meaning they typically have long-term committed relationships, just without legal marriage contracts. Some couples even remain devoted to each other for life, with only one difference: they never live under the same roof. This may seem unusual to those of us accustomed to big weddings, shared household registrations, shared property, and sometimes even shared debt. But for the Mosuo, love is entirely voluntary. If the relationship works, it continues. If it doesn't, they part ways respectfully. No one is labeled as having abandoned a spouse, and no one carries the stigma of divorce. When Mosuo children turn 13, they participate in a coming-of-age ceremony. Girls receive a skirt, boys receive a pair of pants, and from that point on, they are given their own private room. This marks their entry into adulthood, a world where love is not arranged by parents, but chosen by the heart. Interestingly, the role of the biological father is not central in this society. Children are raised within the mother's family, especially by their maternal uncles, the mother's brothers. As a result, the family structure remains strong and stable, even though couples do not live together. So in the end, are they faithful? If faithfulness means maintaining a long-term, respectful relationship and choosing to stay together willingly, then yes. The difference is that their commitment is not based on legal obligation or social pressure, but on personal choice. And honestly, that's pretty fascinating, isn't it? As you can see, Earth is full of mysteries and surprises, and the strange and bizarre villages we've just explored are living proof of that. From villages forgotten in the heart of the desert, to communities perched along the edges of mountains, to places where residents maintain unusual customs and traditions, each one holds extraordinary stories that not everyone would dare to believe. So what about you? Which village impressed you the most? And do you know of any other unusual villages around the world? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to give Discovery Fact a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any more fascinating discoveries. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.